This is TNT, Truck News Talk. Here's Stan Campbell and Jim Park.
Integrity. Now, there's a word that seems to have lost its value over the past several years, especially in politics, as we've all witnessed. Integrity is described as the firm adherence to a code of especially moral or artistic values. Incorruptibility. So how does it apply to the trucking industry? Well, the recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling on broker liability creates a challenge for carriers. How do we distinguish between the scofflaw carriers and the good ones? Rather than wait for various governments to tighten up their carrier rating methodology, George Kresulia developed the Carrier Integrity Pact. Now, George is our guest on this episode of Truck News Talk, right after this message from Howes Products, makers of Diesel Defender, a diesel fuel lubricator and injector cleaner with advanced IDX4 detergent.
Out here, every mile matters, so make every mile count. Diesel fuel is the lifeblood of your engine, and the cleaner it is, the better your truck performs. That's why there's Howes Diesel Defender. It removes water, boosts lubricity, and cleans your fuel system, helping you burn fuel more efficiently and get more power from every drop. Use it at every fill-up for better performance and cleaner fuel. When you're counting miles, count on Diesel Defender from Howes. Find Howes at retailers nationwide. Visit HowesProducts.com for more information.
Hello, George.
Hi, Stan.
Greetings, George.
Good morning, Jim.
George, you contacted me, way back months ago. I was in Colombia.
I think you were just actually heading out, so that was probably January or February.
We apologize for taking so long to get back to you with this because it's a great concept.
No, you know what? All good things are worth waiting for, and I got to just say it's truly a pleasure to make your guys' acquaintance. I follow you guys on LinkedIn. I follow you on Truck News. It's a real honor to talk to you guys today.
Well,
privilege is all ours.
Why don't we start off for people who may not know, George, about your background and where you're coming from. I see a connection to TransX, so maybe you could explain all that and your background.
Well, I started in the industry back in the early 90s as a truck driver. Gradually realized that driving truck was great, but it wasn't for me, but I loved the industry. Moved into sales. Actually started selling trucks, highway tractors, Western Stars, Hinos. From there, went into freight sales. From there, started my own trucking company, grew it, sold it, got into corporate Canada, did not like it very much, went back into ownership, then freelanced a bit. Met Louis Delaney in 2015, wanted me to come on board to start a logistics division for him. He'd bought my company at the time that I was running and was there for 11 years up until this past February when I had to make a decision. I firmly thought I was going to retire at TransX. I loved it there, but the Carrier Integrity Pact called me away. So that's where we came from. 30 plus years, close to 35 now in this industry. Seen the good, the bad, and everything in between.
Was there something in particular that triggered you to start the Carrier Integrity Pact?
Well, it's been ongoing for years. I've seen this industry back in the 90s. It was a good industry, and it slowly declined over the years. And it got to a point where it was not an industry that I was proud of anymore, and it's an industry that's been good to me. So I had to make a decision. I'm 57 years old, and a lot of people are saying, George, why are you doing this? And it's not for the money, because they're definitely nobody's getting rich off of CIP. But it's, I guess, to leave a legacy, to leave the place better than when you got into it.
You list yourself as a co-founder of the Carrier Integrity Pact on the LinkedIn page. Who else is involved with this?
Well, I did that intentionally because I don't want it to be a George thing. This is an industry-led initiative. I started back last fall talking to carriers, big ones, small ones, in between. And I wanted the carriers to know, the founding carriers, the ones that are on board from day one. They're co-founders of this just as much as I am.
I see.
I
Okay.
may be leading it, but it's a collaborative effort.
Is there a corporate structure and governance or a board of directors or advisors who are accountable for all this?
Yes, there will be. This Friday, actually, I'm meeting with our legal advisors to formally incorporate as a federally not-for-profit entity. There will be a board of directors. I'm right now. There's five. We're hopefully going to get to 10, and the board is going to be diverse. It's going to be a voluntary board, comprised of industry leaders and the movers and shakers, I guess you can say.
Will they be predominantly carriers, or will you have like association members like CTA and the PMTC? Will there be load brokers involved?
You have to be a carrier to be part of to have the Carrier Integrity Pact designation.
Okay.
So again, the board is going to be comprised of individuals that know this industry. So associations, I have had mixed reaction from them. I'm not going to name any,
No, that's
but
fine.
I can tell you that three are very interested in this initiative. Some are not very or looking favorably on it, and that's fine. I want I want everybody to know that this is not a lobby or an advocacy. We don't have members. We have designated carriers. Um, so this is very different from an association.
Okay.
The associations do lobbying, uh, advocacy, and they do great work that way. We are a signal. We are a professional designation. We don't really have a voice, and we're not going to proceed that way.
Is there some other parallel organization out there in the world similar to what you see CIP doing? I'm just trying to frame it in a way that the listener can understand what this actually is.
Well, I'm modeling it closely to professional designations. For example, professional engineer, P engineer, certified professional accountant or CPA,
Okay.
CGA, that type of um, designation. So it's more institutional that than anything else. So it's that's where we're trying to get it, is just a professional designation for trucking companies, and it's something that I have never seen tried before in this industry, so it's very new to everybody.
Okay. On paper, I'm thinking this is a great idea. I understand what that professional designation means to somebody in a profession, a lawyer, doctor, engineer, for example. Currently, we sort of rely on the carrier safety rating system. Classification really doesn't serve anybody well because the audits and the ratings that we get from our various provinces are almost useless because they're so old and they don't really tell you anything about the carrier. Unsatisfactory, conditional satisfactory, satisfactory, unaudited. Like, what does that really mean? So in that context, where will CIP, would CIP be a proxy for those ratings, or would it go beyond that?
It's going to go beyond that. So those ratings are a snapshot in time. It tells you what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. CIP through the application is going to verify. There's a quote that Ronald Reagan used. It's trust but verify. So the CIP application is going to ask a lot of questions that are meant to establish how the company operates and whether they are following the laws, whether they are, you know, operating with integrity. And it's not a one and done. There will be audits through the 12 months, and it's again not a one and done. Meaning, you apply, you get the designation for 12 months, then you have to reapply. And again, so during that 12-month period, there may be audits. There's going to be whistleblower hotline. There may be site inspections. So it's going to be a complicated process meant to identify the carriers that follow the laws.
And who would actually use um, the rating that might evolve from a CIP application? Is it for load brokers? Is it for other shippers? Is it for enforcement? Who's going to want this?
It's for the industry itself and the stakeholders. So insurance could look at it as a benchmark. Right now, everybody is in the same bucket. So if there's a claim, it's a claim. But if we had a designation like CIP, and let's say we fast forward 12 months, the insurance industry could now benchmark and say, well, out of all the claims in the last 12 months, how many were CIP carriers involved? Right? I spoke with the financial sector. One of the big lenders in Canada had a frank conversation with me, and I said, look, we don't want to be painted with the same brush again. He says, George, it's too late. You already are. But then he said to me, CIP is like an audited financial statement. So when somebody applies for a loan, they put in their financial statement, and the lender first looks for, is this statement audited or not? And they go into different buckets. Now, not to say that CIP is going to be looking at financial statements from trucking companies. It's not. But it's going to be looking at different things that will enable financial people to look at it and say, okay, this company operates with integrity, so they may be less of a risk. Same with the insurance. Same with shippers. Right now, it's very hard to distinguish between a carrier that operates within the laws and one that doesn't. So now the Canadian government introduced a bill called the S211. It's meant to root out forced labor in the supply chain, right? So how do you do that? Well, now a shipper can look at the CIP designation and say, well, this carrier operates with integrity. It does not operate under the Driver Inc. model. It doesn't abuse LEMA, and it makes sure that their employees are treated fairly. So those are and the general public can look at a trucking company, and on the side of the trailer, it'll say CIP. They can have confidence that that company has not a chameleon company, meaning close down in Manitoba and open up in Alberta 2 months later.
George, this sounds a bit familiar. We've been talking here on TNT for the past several months about the Red Seal certification. This almost sounds like a badge, if I may, almost like a Red Seal certification, but for the carriers.
Yes, that's, in a nutshell, if that's how you wanted to describe it, it's a Red Seal for carriers.
And the benefit, though, is to the actual carriers in this case, because of insurance and loans and so on.
Yeah, it's where the carrier can say, a few months ago, there was an article published in La Presse in Montreal, and it named 4 carriers that were operating under Driver Inc. and that were, I believe, involved with Canada Post some. And those 4 carriers, I'm not going to mention their names again, but I can tell you with most certainty that I believe they weren't Driver Inc. But here they are in a huge publication being accused of it. Well, if there was a CIP and they had the designation, they can just say, sorry, look at this. We are a CIP carrier.
Right? Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Where does this sit in the context of the recent Supreme Court ruling in the U.S. on broker liability, the Montgomery versus Carrier case? And we've heard several commentators saying this is a double-edged sword, that yes, maybe we'll get rid of some of the nasty carriers, but also it leaves the brokers in a difficult position when it comes to identifying good carriers, because the existing safety rating, as I talked about earlier, is almost meaningless. Would this be something that a carrier could wave under the nose of a load broker and say, yes, we are worthy of doing business with?
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I've had two interviews with the American media about this since that court ruling. So a load broker now will look at the safety code. They'll go to the Safer website and look at the information again. A snapshot in time from a few months ago. They don't know how that carrier is operating today. If they see the CIP designation, they can rest assured. Now, it's not a guarantee, but it's a signal to say this carrier went through a verification process, and an intense one, and it met the designation qualification. So we're going to have a website that we're developing right now that's the public can go to, the stakeholders can go to, and they can verify whether the carrier has the designation today. And they can also look through on that website to see what the designation actually means, to look at the process the carrier had to go through to get the designation. So it's meat and potatoes to for them because it's something they can look at and they can rely on.
I would call the public portals that we have now into CVOR, at least here in Ontario, and the SAFER database in the U.S. is frustratingly vague. There's not much there that the public can actually see. Is this going to shine a bit more light on the carrier's performance?
Yes, because the public will actually see the steps that the carrier had to go through. There's also a code of conduct that the public will be able to see that the carrier has to abide by. All right. So it's an assurance. It's not a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning that if say the carrier qualifies for the designation today and 3 months from now falls out of favor, well, we'll have a mechanism to deal with that. And if it means revoking the designation, then that's what's going to happen. So it's going to be current. It's not going to be a time lapse on it, like again, I call it a snapshot in time. So there's that integrity gap that we want to close. And if you see a carrier that has the CIP designation, you know that they have gone through that audit or through that process. You know that they're subject to audits, and that we can catch it a little bit more quickly than you know the government. So it's a tool for the government as well. I have met with every provincial transportation ministry, and all of them love the idea. As a matter of fact, one of them said, George, this is the first time somebody from your industry is coming to us and not telling us what we need to do. You're actually doing something. And that's exactly what it is. We, as a whole, have always asked somebody else to fix our problem. It's a problem that the industry created themselves. And I can go into a tirade about how Driver Inc. started. It was started within the industry by the industry. Now we're saying, hey, you guys, we need your help. You need to fix it. Well, how about we do something to help fix it?
You made a similar comment on a story I'd written recently on Truck News. The story was an open letter to transport ministers.
Yes.
Doing exactly that, calling on them to, step up and do their jobs, because we don't have, as an industry, a mechanism to enforce, poor behavior in other carriers, our competitors. We can't slap a closed sign on their door. We just have to roll with the punches, as it were. And your comment to me was, well, yeah, but why don't we do something about it? So the mechanism, at the time you made the comment, I was thinking to myself, well, what mechanism is there? But I can see now where the Carrier Integrity Pact wouldn't actually do anything to those shyster carriers, but it would stand the rest of the industry up, a little bit taller, I guess, in stature, when they can demonstrate that they are compliant and good carriers.
Yeah, it's kind of like the reverse. It's not identifying the carriers who operate under the Driver Inc. model
Mhm.
or different things. It's identifying the carriers that don't.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. So when you swim in a pool full of sharks, the best way to get out of there and not be considered a shark is to get out of the pool
Hmm.
and to show yourself that you're doing things the right way, the proper way.
Well, I want to get into some of the nuts and bolts of how this works, but before we do, Stan, you're awful quiet over there.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, George, and I think very early in the conversation. And you mentioned there were certain associations, and I know you don't want to name them, but that were not exactly on board. Can you tell us maybe what some of the negatives were that you were hearing from them and what your responses would have been?
Okay, well, I'm going to be brutally honest here. This, to some associations, is a threat to their membership. Associations are a collaborative. The association speaks for the collective, right? The CIP is now saying, no, it's the individual carrier that now gets to stand up and identify themselves. So, I mean, I don't know for a fact that that's what some of the associations are feeling, but I know that that's what I think. That's my personal opinion. Now, if I was an executive at an association, a president or an executive director, I would take the approach that, hey, this is a good thing because I'm going to take pride in the amount of my members who qualify for this designation. It's not stealing from the member because we're not an advocacy or a lobbying group. That's not what we do. That's what the associations do. But the association can say, hey, look at these members that we have that are CIP qualified. It's not just how the words fail me for whatever reason right now, but this is you can enter the trucking business without any barrier, right? Just like you can go to university, become or graduate with a law degree, but until you pass the bar, you can't practice law. So that's what this CIP is. Anybody can become a carrier, but now you have the designation. Now you're a professional carrier. So the association should look favorably on this. So I'm sorry, that was a long-winded answer to your question, I think.
I think you mentioned one time it functions like a bar association.
Yeah, it basically is because you have to pass the bar to qualify for it. And the bar is the application.
Speaking of qualifying, the cost to become a member, there is a cost involved.
There is a cost because we are going to have to operate this, and we're going to have to monitor all this, and so I'll tell you right up front. And I was interviewed by James Menzies, and I let him know, and I'll let you guys know that the initial application fee is $5,000. That is necessary because of the work that's going to be involved to vet the application. But that's also your first year fee. The second year, for when you renew, it'll be based on your fleet size. So, because the second year verification of the application is going to be a little bit easier than that initial one. So, yeah, there is a cost, but we are also going to be a very lean organization. We're going to be virtual. We're going to have a website that's going to be basically our bricks and mortar, our head office, our storefront. Everything that we do is going to be through the website. And I just signed a 10-year agreement with an IT firm that sees the merit in this. And they're not just building us a website, they're building us an e-commerce site where everything is going to be, where the regulators, the insurance industry, finance, the public, the shippers, everybody can go to this one site. So, yeah, there's definitely costs involved in this, but it's a not-for-profit. So nobody's getting rich. If there is profits at the end of the year, then we're going to look at putting the money back into the industry through bursaries, scholarships, training programs, and that type of stuff.
What sort of things are you going to be looking for when you start um, analyzing a carrier? Um, is it tracking like accident crash records? Is it looking at the management structure of the company? How deep into the personal records do you go of the owners and principals in the company, or even the actual drivers who are working for that company?
Okay, so we have to be careful with privacy laws, right? So we also are going to structure the application where we're going to ask the right questions. In simple terms, we're going to try to keep it very simple. We're not going to be too intrusive. It's not going to be where the carrier comes in and applies and has to spend hours and hours on the application. All of the questions that we're going to ask is going to be information that is readily available in their HR departments or in their accounting departments. And we're going to structure the application where each section of the application has direct tie to other sections, and where you look at the answers. For example, how big is your fleet? 50 trucks? Okay. How many T4s for drivers did you issue last year? And if the answer is 6 and you have 50 trucks, well, that's a red flag, right? We're going to ask the question, who is the owner, right? Does the owner have any ties to any other trucking companies? Um, we're going to ask about physical addresses. We're going to ask, do you have in-house maintenance facilities? Where do you get your safeties done? Right? And we're going to ask for proof of that. Show us some invoices for your maintenance. Um, do you participate in labor programs like Lima, right? Who owns the contract, right? And then we're going to, if there's enough red flags, we're going to drill down deeper and we're going to ask to interview people and we're going to ask to do an on site visit. And then during the course of the year, we're going to talk to drivers at the truck stops. As you guys are well aware, drivers are very receptive and they will answer questions as long as they're not intrusive or personal.
Yeah.
But we'll go up to a driver and ask them a couple of questions. And so um, the application is going to be detailed, but it's not going to be complicated.
Well, one of the things we hear from the enforcement community, the regulators, is that there are simply too many carriers to audit and not enough auditors to do it.
Yeah.
How big an organization is CIP going to become if you hope to make a significant dent in the carrier population, or at least influence a significant number of carriers to get involved in this? That's a lot of work.
Well, it's going to be as big as it needs to be, and it's going to scale. Again, you have to understand CIP is voluntary, it's not mandatory. So a carrier has to make a decision whether they want the designation or not. You mentioned the government regulators. Yes, I think I read somewhere there's 123,000 trucking companies identified by CRA. Okay, that's a lot of trucking companies. Now, granted, there's a lot of one and two mom and pops, but CIP should help the regulators know where to start, right? So if, let's say, the CIP designation has 1,000 affiliated carriers, right? So if I used common sense as a regulator, I am not going to start looking at a CIP company. That doesn't mean I won't look at a CIP company, but I'm not going to start there. So if you take 1,000 carriers out of that mix, the pool drops significantly, and the regulators know where to start.
Is there a minimum fleet size to qualify for a designation?
Nope.
So a mom and pop could get in there.
I've had lots of questions from owner operators saying, hey, would I qualify for this? If you're a carrier, an owner operator technically is a carrier, so they would be able to. So the big question is the initial 5,000 application fee. For some, that is kind of
it's a barrier.
That's a barrier. But if you look at the rewards down the road, the natural byproduct would be that, hey, if shippers start looking for CIP carriers, right? If insurance companies say, you know what, after all of this, we realize that a CIP carrier is less risk. Like if you get your driver's license in Manitoba here, if you have no speeding tickets, no accidents, you pay less for your license
Mhm.
as opposed to somebody that has a lot of accidents. So that's a natural byproduct that should be there and that should offset that cost. So, I tell some, and I have to be careful because I'm not selling snake oil here. All right. So I don't want to oversell it. But if you look at it just from a common sense point of view, you could actually measure the CIP on your P&L.
How many I don't want to say have signed up already, have agreed to come on board?
Out of I think I approached 130 carriers. So I have 10 firm yeses. Okay. Out of that, there's about 30 that have said, we love it, but we don't want to be the first. Right.
How Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's some others that say, yeah, let's see what happens. I don't expect everybody because it's brand new and because nobody is really wants to start something with the, possibility of failure. But if you don't try, you won't succeed.
Well, that's positive. There's an incentive to do better is out there.
Yeah, and to separate yourself from the bad guys.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
How do you monitor the carrier's performance on an ongoing basis if they have several fatal accidents over the course of a year, for example, and their official safety rating takes a hit? Are they under any obligation to self-report that, or do you ferret it out somehow on your own?
Well, I mean,
not you, George, but CIP.
Yeah. So an accident is an accident, right? And just because you have an accident doesn't mean you're a bad guy.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you have multiple accidents, if you have multiple violations, that will, during the course of the year, we are going to be able to audit. So if somebody with the CIP designation hits the news and or is involved in something that is in the gray area, obviously we will look at that. We'll review it right away. We won't take the designation right away. We're going to have a way of letting the carrier prove that it's a one-time thing or it's an anomaly. Right?
Okay.
There'll be a mechanism in there. So, but that's not to say they won't lose their designation if that's warranted.
I got a couple more questions here, and then I'll step back and we can wrap this up, or Stan can fill in for me here for a bit. But what sort of things might contribute to a carrier's application being rejected?
Dishonesty, number one. Misrepresentation, where if you, for example, I'll throw this out. You say you get your safeties done locally, but it turns out you're buying them from a shop in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely not going to merit the designation. If you've had 4 different companies in the last 3 years, that probably won't merit the designation. So it's not just one thing; it's a multiple questions that we ask, and we'll decide whether the designation is warranted or not.
Okay. And what does the final outcome look like? Is the carrier rated somehow on a scale, or is it simply declared certified, fit to do business, the rubber stamp?
It's
or the red
one or
seal,
none.
I should add, maybe not the
Yeah,
rubber stamp.
it's either you qualify or you don't.
Okay.
Same as you're pregnant or you're not, right? It's that. There's no tiers. Everybody, once you have the CIP designation, that's it. There's no different tiers or levels or anything like that.
Okay. Fair. Stan, before we wrap up?
Yeah, there was one thing I thought about, and we know that, there are bad schools out there, and they're turning out people who are not qualified to drive. Worse still, there are companies who hire them Is that something you look at? You say, if you look at a carrier, where do you hire your drivers from? If you hired them from Joe's fly-by-night school, is that something you would see or notice? Or
We're going to ask, how do you hire drivers, right? How do you drive or train your drivers? What ongoing education do you have for your drivers? What incentives do you have for your drivers? And that kind of stuff. We're not going to qualify drivers. We're not going to qualify driving schools. That's out of
no.
our scope. So, but the question is, how much driver turnover do you have, right? And that kind of stuff.
That's a valid question.
George, this is looking good. It sounds great. And is there like an official kickoff point for this?
Once we are officially incorporated, that means we are a legal entity. That means we're going to have hopefully our phase 1 of our website where carriers can come to and apply. The public can come to, and the industry as a whole could come, and we'll issue a press release and go from there. It's not going to be fanfare. It's not going to be bells and whistles, and we're not going to have parades or anything like that. This is a professional designation. It's meant to be institutional. So it's meant to speak for itself.
Will it be open to American carriers as well?
Yes, it's scalable. It's something that the American audience is looking at. Like I'd mentioned, I'd had 2 interviews with different journalists down there. It's a little bit different. Well, Canadians and Americans are a little bit, there's 350 million of them down there as opposed to our 40 million up here. So I think what we need to do is get it off the ground, get it recognized here in Canada. And I think that the Americans would follow suit, hopefully with an American chapter. But it's meant to be national, and it could be international easily.
Well, George, thank you very much for taking your time to tell us about the Carrier Integrity Pact. I think it's a great idea, and we look forward to seeing all these carriers get on board as soon as you get it all taken care of with what we call the paperwork.
The paperwork, yes. And gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. It's been an honor and a pleasure to talk to you both. You guys do great work for this industry, and thank you for that.
Well, thank you, George. Take care and the best of luck with this.
That's our guest, George Kresulia. You can find out more about the Carrier Integrity Pact on LinkedIn, and he is working on that new website right now. So keep checking back for that. In a moment, we'll tell you what's coming up on the next edition of Truck News Talk, right after this message from Howe's Products, makers of Diesel Defender, a diesel fuel lubricator and injector cleaner with advanced IDX4 detergent.
Out here, every mile matters, so make every mile count. Diesel fuel is the lifeblood of your engine, and the cleaner it is, the better your truck performs. That's why there's Howe's Diesel Defender. It removes water, boosts lubricity, and cleans your fuel system, helping you burn fuel more efficiently and get more power from every drop. Use it at every fill-up for better performance and cleaner fuel. When you're counting miles, count on Diesel Defender from Howe's. Find Howe's at retailers nationwide. Visit howesproducts.com for more information.
Well, I thought I could tell you what's coming up in the next edition of TNT, Truck News Talk, but Jim Park hasn't shared that with me today. So, as they say in radio, stay tuned. In the meantime, have a safe and rewarding week. I'm Stan Campbell with Jim Park.